Howdy, and happy Halloween. There are two stories in the Bible that can be considered ghost stories. One is in 1 Samuel chapter 28, the story of the witch of Endor. In this story, the prophet Samuel has died after anointing Saul and David. But Saul is king, and he is facing the Philistines in battle, and he is not hearing from God. And he's scared. And so he asks his advisors, do you know where I can find a medium? And they said, well, there's a medium at Endor, a witch there. So he goes and he has her conjure up the ghost of Samuel. And Samuel says, what do you want? Saul says, I'm not hearing from God and I'm facing the Philistines. And Samuel said, well, yeah, I told you this was going to happen. You disobeyed. You didn't do what God told you to do. You weren't the king that God commanded you to be. So yeah, you're going to face the Philistines tomorrow. You're going to die. Your son Jonathan's going to die. And David's going to become king. I told you this. You already know that. In the New Testament, you have the story of Dives and Lazarus. It's in Luke chapter 16. It's a parable that Jesus is telling. And in the parable, you have Dives, who's the rich man, and Lazarus, who's the beggar outside Dives' mansion. And both of them die. Lazarus ends up in the bosom of Abraham in heaven, and Dives ends up in the fires of Hades. And there's a chasm between them, and Dives calls to Abraham and says, Father Abraham, save me. And Father Abraham says, nope, not going to happen. And says, well, at least have Lazarus dip his finger in water and quench my tongue from these fires of Hades. And once again, Abraham says, nope, ain't going to happen. And so Dives finally says, well, at least have Lazarus go and warn my brothers so they don't end up here as well. And Abraham's response is pretty much the same as Samuel's. He says, no, you've been told. They've been told. They already have all they need to know. They have the law. They have the prophets. And we have the advantage of the example of Jesus Christ and his commandments that he taught us. We know what it is to love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, to love our neighbor as ourselves. We've been given the advice and the guidance and even the example of Christ to be righteous, to live the good lives that God calls us to live. We already know all of this. It's just a matter of us doing it, living the life, so that we may enjoy life abundant, so that we may enjoy the blessing upon blessing that God has in store for us, that we may grow to be the people that God has called us to be, and that we may enjoy Him now and in the age to come. Thanks for listening. Adios.